We are blessed to be living in this land. Amen. St. Martin is blessed. And today I want to big up St. Martin. You know, often we have all sorts of things to say about the island. You know, it's not good, it's crowded, it's corrupted, it's expensive, it's crime and all of that thing. Yes, that's a part of it. But sometimes, you know, we only look at the negatives. And we don't really focus on the good things, the positive things. And today I want to focus on the positive things on St. Martin. This little 37 square mile island, delightfully Dutch and fantastically French. It's been good to us. It's been good to me. St. Martin has been good to her sons and her daughters. St. Martin has been good to her other children. May I just call them, for sake of a better word, the bastard children. Those who weren't born here. But she embraced them all. I felt I was embraced. I wasn't born here. But I was embraced by St. Martin and the people of this island. Smallest twin island nation in the world. So unique in so many ways. So today I want to big it up. I want to celebrate St. Martin. We want to look at some of the good things of St. Martin. I want to start with my own testimony. I wouldn't be what I am today. I wouldn't be where I am today or who I am today if it were not for St. Martin. Of course, in the first place, it is because of God. And that verse always stays with me. All that I am or ever hope to be, I owe it all to thee. But I want to say to St. Martin, I owe a lot to you. I probably would still be on Saba today. Perhaps I might have been a fisherman or a farmer. Nothing wrong with those professions. Those were the professions of my father. And I believe it was his intention that I would follow in his footsteps. Because he didn't make a great effort to want to send me to further education. But I had a mother whose eyes were set beyond the horizon of Saba. And she borrowed money from my uncle so that I could continue my studies where? In St. Martin. I came to St. Martin in 1962. It's quite different than what it is today. St. Martin treated me like her own son. And so I fell in love with this beautiful island. I wrote songs about the island. And poems about the island also, Sister Gillian. Excuse St. Martin has given me opportunities that I probably would not have had on the island of Saba. In the field of education, I taught at every level from kindergarten right up to university. In the field of government, I was appointed to top positions. In the field of arts, I sang and I made music and I wrote poetry. And in the field of religion and spiritual activities, I am fortunate to lead one of the historic churches on the island, the New Testament Baptist Church. And I'm grateful for that. Also fortunate to lead the St. Martin United Ministerial Foundation. And it's because of St. Martin, those of you who were not there, let me just share with you because you need to share my success. I received this award last night. Because of St. Martin. St. Martin Citizens Achievement Award. I'm grateful to St. Martin. only in St. Martin can something like this happen. St. Martin has been very good to me. Here I found my wife, and here my children were born. Well, that's my story. And there are many stories, I'm sure, if I would give you an opportunity, you would be able to share your story. Because when Brother Jonathan asked about people who were born here, there were few people who raised their hands. But since we're here, we are claiming St. Martin also. And especially those of you who are born on the 11th of November, even if you're not from here, you're a true St. Martiner. There are many rags to riches stories in St. Martin. People who came here with only the clothes on their backs. But several years later, they've made it. Before you know it, they have a job, they have a car, they have a spouse and a house. They're prosperous and wealthy because of St. Martin. St. Martin has been good to us. St. Martin is blessed. Would you say that with me? St. Martin is blessed. And why is St. Martin blessed? St. Martin is blessed because God has been good to St. Martin. The psalmist says, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord." Say it again. St. Martin is blessed. Yes, it is blessed. God has blessed this island, this country. God has spared St. Martin from major disasters. How many of you went through Hurricane Lewis? We still remember Hurricane Lewis. But it could have been worse. Could have been so worse. But we saw St. Martin rise like a phoenix out of the debris and the ashes of Hurricane Lewis and rebuilt itself. And today, St. Martin is better off than it was before Hurricane Lewis. We don't understand, but my Bible tells me that all things work together for good. And even sometimes a hurricane may not seem good, but God has His good in everything. And so that chorus, just the goodness of God, keeps raining on me, keeps raining on us, keeps raining on this island. So where St. Martin is today, it's because of the goodness of God. God's mercy kept this island. And we may not always agree with what's going on. Some of the things that are going on, they're not good. But God has a way of sending His rain on the just and the unjust. If I were God, if you were God, we would take many elements out of this island. But God is no respecter of persons, and He has mercy on everyone. And what He does well. So let's not take the blessings that we have here on this island for granted. We can complain, but I think we live on the greatest 37 square isled twin nation in the world. Do you agree with me? So sometimes we can go in the supermarket and we say, wow, it's expensive. The things are expensive. But you know, there are other parts of the world where people don't have anything at all to eat. We see the land prices going up. And we say there may not be enough land for our children and our grandchildren. But there are parts of this world already where people cannot even own land or have a house. We talk about the gasoline prices going up, but you know, there are people who can't even afford a car. We talk about the police. They won't catch the thieves. And there are lots of murders that have taken place. But do you know there are places in the world where the police themselves are the thieves and the murderers? Thank God for St. Martin. We have it pretty good here. Very good. And we can't deny this. And I believe that all of these things we're enjoying because of the blessings of God. A lot of negative things we can say. We can talk about the evil and the immorality. But when we look around, we see the beauty also of this island and the friendliness of her people. And you can't tell me that St. Martin isn't blessed. I'm reminded of Deuteronomy where it says, God was saying to Israel, if you do what I say, you'll be blessed in your going out, and you'll be blessed in your coming in. You'll be blessed in your sitting down and in your rising up. You'll be blessed in the city and blessed in the fields. And I believe that that applies to this island. We're blessed. And still we ask God, God, would you please bless St. Martin? And that's a good prayer to have. But I believe that God has already blessed us. I believe it's our turn to bless St. Martin. Bless St. Martin by doing something good for St. Martin. Bless St. Martin by giving back to St. Martin. How can we bless this island? And I want to take us to the Jewish people for a moment. Let's learn a lesson from the Jews. And I found a little verse embedded in the middle of a long book in the Old Testament, in the book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 29 and verse 7. The circumstances and the context of this verse may be different. But I want us to look at the verse and see what are the principles that we can learn from this little verse. Jeremiah chapter 29 and verse 7. I'm going to read to you from the New International Version. It says, also seek the peace and the prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, for that city. Because if the city prospers, you too will prosper. Seek the peace of the city. Pray for the city. Seek prosperity for the city. Because if the city prospers, you too will prosper. Let me explain the context of this verse briefly. Because of the rebellion of the Jews, they were carried away into captivity by the Assyrians to Babylon. Thousands of miles away from their own country. They found themselves in a totally foreign country. Different culture, different way of life, different religion. And their first reaction was to complain, to rebel. Their first reaction was to protest, undermine the Babylonian system. And they were homesick. They missed their country. And they wept a lot as they thought about Jerusalem. And they thought about it a lot, and they wanted to go back. And this is the context of a very well-known song. By the rivers of Babylon, where we sat down. Hey, hey, when we remembered Zion. Could you sing it with me? By the rivers of. Hey, we wept when we remembered Zion. They were remembering Zion. Okay. All right, listen to the words. How can we? In a strange land. All right. Thank you. That's what they were doing. They would go down to the rivers. Babylon had beautiful rivers. And instead of getting involved in the city and in the economy and looking for a job, they were expecting that they would be going back soon, because there were prophets with them who were saying to them, look, guys, children of Israel, whatever they call them, we are going back in 2 years' time. It was predicted. The false prophet says in 2 years' time we're going back home. So just sit out and wait it out. Don't get involved. Don't look for work. Don't get married. Don't build houses. Don't plant anything. Just wait. We're going back home. And so they would just reminisce and think and cry at the rivers of Babylon. For it was only a short time. So they would gather around, and perhaps on the Sabbath days they would come together and reminisce and talk about how good God was to them back there. While they were in their protest mode one day, a messenger arrives from Jerusalem. He has a letter from the prophet Jeremiah. And they're so glad to hear word from back home. Surely the prophet would have a word of encouragement for them. Surely the words of the prophet Jeremiah would corroborate with the words of the local prophets that would say, guys, just hold tight, hold on, don't give up, we're going home soon. So just imagine with me, they all come together on the Sabbath to hear the reading of the letter that was sent to them by the prophet Jeremiah. The prophet, chief prophet amongst them, unrolls the letter. And I want us to just look at Jeremiah chapter 29. I'm going to ask Jonathan. Jonathan, would you read verses 4 to 6 for us? You are the chief prophet down in Babylon, and you have told these Israel, Jeremiah 29, 4 to 6, you have told the people that they're going back home soon. So now you have to read the words from Jeremiah the prophet. So begin. Read verse 4. Would you stand, please? Oh, yeah, you stand.
Thus said the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, unto all that are carried away captives, whom I have caused to be carried away from Jerusalem unto Babylon. Build ye houses and dwell in them, and plant gardens.
Wait. Build houses? But we're not staying here. We're going back in 2 years' time. So where is Jeremiah coming from? Telling us to build houses and to plant gardens? Planting gardens here in Babylon? We ain't doing that. We remembered when we were in Egypt how they made us work. So if they see us go to work, now they're going to force us to work. Planting gardens, we ain't doing that. Continue.
And eat the fruit of them.
Verse 6.
Take ye wives, and beget sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons, and give your daughters to husbands, that they may...
What? Take wives? Marry? We're not going to be here too long. We don't want to get married down there. Even though we married to our own kind, we're not staying here. We have our traditional types of weddings in Jerusalem, and we're going to wait till we go back. We're not marrying. Continue.
That they may bear sons and daughters, that ye may be increased there and not diminished.
Increase. No, we're not multiplying down here, because we saw what the Pharaoh did to us in Egypt. And so it was contradictory to what they were being told. Read verse 7.
And seek the peace of the city, whether I have caused you to be carried away captives, and pray unto the Lord for it. For in the peace thereof shall ye have peace.
Okay, that's the King James Version. In the New International Version, seek the peace and prosperity of the city. He says, besides building houses, marrying, planting, seek the peace and the prosperity. Jeremiah wants us, you may be seated. Jeremiah wants us to cooperate with these, our enemies. Look how they've treated us. They could have left us back home. We're not going to be submissive to them. We're not going to follow their orders. But Jeremiah says, seek the peace. When we're seeking peace, it means we got to go out of our way. Got to make an effort. Got to do whatever can be done. Got to work along with these people, with these Babylonians. We got to cooperate with them. Seek the peace and the prosperity of the city. Got to love them, Jeremiah is saying. You got to bless them. And then he says, pray to the Lord for it. Here they are in Babylon. God is saying, you pray for Babylon. You pray for your oppressors. You seek the peace. And in the Jewish term shalom, it doesn't mean the absence of war. It means the well-being, the welfare. Pray that Babylon will prosper. Pray that the economy will bloom. Pray that they will have things that will be good for them. Pray for the leaders of Babylon. Pray for the economy of Babylon. Pray for the safety and the protection of the city. You're going to be there a long time. 70 years. If you read the other verses, he says you're going to be there 70 years, so you may as well get used to it. Adapt. Don't forget you're God, but adjust to the situation. Pray for the peace and the prosperity of Babylon. Now the Jews understood that principle, and they applied that principle. And the principle from that verse is, seek the peace and the prosperity of the city. For those of us who were not born here and came here for whatever reason, that principle is, let's seek the peace and the prosperity of St. Martin. The principle is in that verse, pray for St. Martin and its leaders. The Jews received that principle. They understood it. The Jews, besides that kind of captivity, all through history, they have been moved and relocated. They have been placed in foreign countries. We know that millions of them were in Europe and 6 million of them were brought to the gas chamber and murdered during the Second World War. But if you would notice one thing about the Jews, wherever they go, they prosper. Wherever the Jews go, they prosper. They understood the principle. They become successful. They're wealthy. They're merchants. They're bankers. They're lawyers. They are the ones who carry the economy in a country. Why? Because they understood the principle. Seek the peace and the welfare of the city. Pray for the city. So wherever you go to live, you must bless the city and the country and the people where you are, so that God can bless you. The Jews understood that principle very well. Here's what a famous philosopher said about the Jews. His name was Friedrich Nietzsche. He lived in the 20th century. He says, the Jews, however, are beyond all doubt the strongest, toughest, and purest race at present living in Europe. They know how to succeed. That's important. They know how to succeed under the worst conditions. Isn't that beautiful? They may not have things as they like it, but they succeed under the worst conditions. Some 300 years ago, Louis XIV, King of France, he said to a Christian philosopher by the name of Pascal, "Give me proof of God. Give me proof that there is a God." Pascal turned to His Majesty the King and said, "Your Majesty, why the Jews? Your Majesty, the Jews. They are proof of God's hand upon a people. They have been at many times near annihilation, but they rise because God has promised that He would bless them, and they understand the principles. They don't go into a country and undermine and rebel and object. They just blend in, they work along. Some years ago, the Wall Street Journal was doing a series on the 3 most important individuals in the century, 20th century, and they came up with 3 people. The name is Sigmund Freud, who turned the whole concept of psychology around. The second was Albert Einstein, famous scientist. And the third one was Karl Marx, who wrote the book Das Kapital, The Capital. He's the forefather of socialism, wrote a book called the Manifesto of Communism. But these 3 men changed the course of history. And another rabbi was looking at people who changed the course of history, and he included Moses and Jesus Christ. Now, all 5 of these people are Jewish people. Jews. It is said that, not said, it's a fact, that 25% of all the Nobel Prizes that have been given to Jews. The little cell phone that we use and we can't do without, it was developed and invented right there in Israel. They are scientists, inventors, and all because they understand the principle, bless the people and bless the city. It's the same principle that Jesus was teaching. when he says, bless those who curse you. Love your enemies. Bless those who say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. It's in blessing others that we receive our blessing. And many people come to this island of St. Martin, and they expect that people would go out of their way for them. But you have to go out of your way first. You came here. I came here. So I must bless this country first and do whatever I can for this country to prosper. I must pray for St. Martin. It's the same principle that Paul was teaching the Gentiles in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 and 3, where he says, I urge you then, first of all, that petitions, prayers, and intercessions and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings and for all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives. May not agree with the government, but we got to pray for them. May not agree with their decisions, but we got to pray for them. And if we can understand the principle to bless people, to be part of the country, God will bless us in return. The Jews understood that principle. Do we as Christians understand this? Do we apply this principle? So many Christians, even those who come here, complain about everything. Have you met people who complain it's not like back home? Back home this was done, and back home and where I come from. You're not back home. You're here. Pray for the peace and the prosperity of the city. Don't be complaining. Because if you're always complaining, go back home. But try to make it right here. You see something wrong, you fix it, instead of complaining about it. And so as Christians, we need to apply this principle. As people living on this island of St. Martin, we need to apply the principle. Seek the peace and the prosperity of St. Martin. And pray to the Lord for the city. You may not be in exile here. The circumstances that forced you to come here are different to the circumstances that caused the Israelites to be in Babylon. But I've seen St. Martin welcome everyone. And so when we're in St. Martin, let's make our mark. And let's leave a mark. Don't send all your money back home. But invest something. Invest some of it in this country. I met a young man from Jamaica the other day, and he said, wow, little by little I've built up myself, and I have 2 homes here in St. Martin, and I've invested and I've built a hotel in Jamaica, and he's back and forth. He knew what he was doing. He didn't send all his money back home, but he invested here as well as there, and so both cities prosper. So I want to tell you today, let's follow that principle. Let's seek the peace and the prosperity of the city. Let's go out of our way. Let's make an effort. Let's do what we can do to build St. Martin. Let's do what we can do to work along with the people and to cooperate. Let's love this island. Let's bless the city. Let's be a good citizen. If you have Dutch rights, vote. That's your right. Know the country that you're in. Some people are here, they don't even know who's the governor. Doesn't matter to them. It's important to know. Especially if you have to pray. When it says pray for the city, it means pray for the leaders also. Be respectful to the national symbols. Thank God I saw many of you when we were singing the anthem and when the flag was coming in, that you stood to attention, and there were others were looking around as if, well, what's going on here? No. Let's pay tribute and be respectful. Let's obey the laws and pay our taxes. Seek the peace. When we have to seek the peace, we have to go out of our way. Not going to stay at home and say, well, let them do their own thing. Pray for the city. Keep this island in your prayers. The shalom, the well-being, the welfare, that it may go well with the people, with the country, with the economy, with the leaders. That's what we pray for. Pray that they will have wisdom and knowledge and discernment. Pray for our schools. Pray for our hospitals. Pray for the various institutions. We need to pray for St. Martin. If there's anything you would go home with today, take these two principles. Pray for what? The peace and the prosperity of the city. And if we may just apply it, pray for the peace and the prosperity of St. Martin. Pray to the Lord for it. For when St. Martin prospers, who prospers? Each one of us. Do you want St. Martin to prosper? Well, we're going to make it happen then. We're going to pray for St. Martin. Would you please?